everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the 2018 MacBook Air and see how this particular MacBook holds up in 2024. Now, it's pretty crazy because these particular MacBooks are like 6 years old now, which is so crazy. And I will tell you, they still have, some capability and some quality, but the best thing I could probably recommend every single person to do is to basically not buy one of these types of older MacBooks. Pretty much ever since 2020, Apple has, just absolutely dominated from that particular, MacBook department, especially from the MacBook Airs. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy any of these older Intel Macs, if I'm being completely honest. But for the most part, I think these, MacBooks still have a lot of capability and a lot of quality, and it still might make a lot of sense for some people to go and purchase like one of those types of devices when it comes down to it. So if you want to pick up some of the latest MacBooks that I would recommend buying, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of this particular MacBook Air, on basically the outside of this, MacBook, you're basically getting the standard type of build. It basically feels the same as any other MacBook that you're going to be buying this particular year. So it still has, aluminum build, still feels very premium, and there's really not a lot to complain about here. I'm still a fan of these MacBooks. Ever since even the first MacBook Air that came out in 2008, 2009, those are still very, very good MacBooks that feel so great in the hand. I would probably argue though, the only issue I have with these older Macs is that, they don't necessarily have the best type of, IO selection anymore compared to the latest MacBook Pros, but that's still totally okay. And I don't even have that much to complain about from that particular area either. So, when you're getting these types of older devices, you kind of know what you're getting, if you know what I'm saying. So from the top side, the, port selection, you're getting 2 USB Type-C ports, then the headphone jack. Fairly cool, I like having that type of IO selection. It's still fairly good for the most part. And once again, I don't really have that much to complain about from that particular side either, because it still holds up fairly well. And I would say the outside is fairly similar to what you're getting on the latest and greatest Mac too. So even that right there is not even that big of a deal or that big of a difference. In terms of that kind of covers it up there. Now flipping this thing open is another very interesting thing, because when you actually go ahead and basically open this thing, you're getting your display. Now, I would probably say one of the biggest selling points of this particular device was actually its display. So it had a Retina display here, which was amazing. I really liked having that Retina display, which was something that was very, very cool. And if I was going through and if I was using this particular device, it was actually a super nice thing of basically having here. Essentially being able to go through and just, having this Retina display was super cool. And I'm definitely going to say if I'm going to have a MacBook, I want it to have some sort of display that's high resolution and looks very, very sharp like this. If you kind of remember, I used to go on Reddit a lot, and back before these Retina MacBooks were made, a lot of people would kind of write in the comment saying that their favorite Mac of all time, or their best, MacBook that they could ever dream of, would be a MacBook Air body with the Retina display. And we're basically there now, which is so crazy. So I will tell you personally, for me, a very good thing going on for this particular device. Again, I'm a very big fan of this particular device from that perspective too. And I will tell you from that particular side, it definitely gets a thumbs up for me just because of the way the display kind of held up, basically for throughout the last couple of years here. So that right there, definitely thumbs up. Now, a problem with that, not everything is perfect on these Macs. The problem with this particular device is actually basically with its keyboard. The main problem that we're getting here is that with this particular keyboard, you are basically getting a keyboard here that is essentially that old butterfly style keyboard. This was a major turnoff for me and for a lot of people. The main reason for this is that there was very little travel. It didn't really feel like an actual keyboard, and it just didn't feel that good of a machine. I definitely feel like, Apple could have done a little bit of a better job here, and that kind of was a problem going on with this particular device. But I will even tell you there, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was a big deal at that moment. Some people got used to it, but the biggest problem of that all was that those keyboards ended up getting a lot of different, failures. So they would essentially go through and they would just start failing randomly all over the place. And that was kind of the problem. If you're going through and actually using it, if you're utilizing this particular device and you're using it on an everyday basis, well, you're not really going to have that great of an experience here, because it's just not going to feel that great. That keyboard is going to fail, and it's just not going to be that great of an experience. And if I were you, if you're wanting the latest and greatest MacBook, you're definitely going to want a MacBook that's going to probably be a little bit better from that perspective. And you don't want it to start failing, especially if you're going to spend a lot of money on it. And Apple doesn't even, I think, cover a lot of those different types of device failures anymore either. So if your keyboard fails, you're pretty much just going to have to pay Apple for them to fix it. So that's why you're probably going to be better off if you don't even buy one of this type of MacBook. You buy one of the latest MacBooks, like the M1 MacBook Air or newer, where they fix this type of keyboard. That will not only save you a little bit of money in the future, but it's also going to make you feel a little bit better when you're going to buy this specific device. So that right there is like another big, massive thing to keep in mind there too. Again, not the end of the world, but it is a very, very big thing to keep in mind too. So beyond that, I look at this type of MacBook on the exterior. I'm still a big fan of it. I still think it holds up very well in a lot of different ways. But once again, you are probably better off if you purchase the latest and greatest MacBook Air, either the M1 MacBook Air that's also still very cheap, rather than buying this particular device. So keep that in mind, but I'm just going to throw that out there. Now, performance-wise, actually software-wise, this, MacBook is still supported with software. It did get the latest and greatest software as of this point, which is still very good. However, I don't know if it's going to be getting the, next version of software. I don't want to go ahead and, recommend a MacBook to you if it's already going to be outdated by the time you buy it. And that's basically what's going to end up happening with this particular MacBook. Now, this thing, like I said, is still supported. It's still going to be fine. You're still going to be getting security updates for the most part too. But like I said, if you're going to want to go ahead and basically get the latest and greatest Mac over years and years and years, this may not be the one that's going to be getting the next version of software. So like I said, right now, the oldest one is this 2018 MacBook Air. That is still supported, but the last thing I'd recommend doing is going through and actually buying this particular MacBook now if you want to go and have a MacBook that's going to last like 4 or 5 years, because that's not what's going to end up happening here. In fact, if you want a MacBook that's still going to last like 3 to 5 years, probably something like the 2020 M1 MacBook Air might be the better option for you as well. So that right there is like another pretty big, thing to kind of keep in mind from that perspective too. But leading us into the performance side, I would say the problem with these Intel Macs was that you weren't really getting the biggest and best MacBooks of those times. So you were getting good chipsets and everything, but it just really wasn't that great of an experience for the most part because it was an Intel chipset, didn't have the most amount of RAM, and you were getting kind of like a watered down experience compared to some other devices. So this could very well have been a pretty big issue for a lot of people. And if I were to go through and actually buy this particular MacBook, like this it wouldn't have been a problem, but it would have been a different type of experience because it just wasn't that great compared to the M1 Macs. So when I'm buying something like an Intel Mac right now, I know it's not going to be that great of an experience because the Apple Silicon was so much better. So I say that to say, like, if you're wanting to go through and actually buy a MacBook that's going to be better for you from the performance side, there's a reason Apple spent so much money on the M chipsets and those M MacBooks, because those are actually substantially better Macs for the most part than these particular ones. So, and what I will tell you, and to kind of sum up this entire video, I liked, the 2018 MacBook Air. I liked it when it first came out. It's still a very good Mac, but for the most part, you are so much better off if you actually pick up a MacBook that is not only still supported with software and has a future ahead of it, but it's also still going to have a long future ahead of it after from a performance side as well. I like these Macs. I think they look very well. I just don't really have that much to complain about here from that particular perspective. But if I were you, and if I were to go and buy some sort of Mac, I think it would definitely be, as you probably would have guessed it, the M1 MacBook Airs. Those are substantially better Macs in almost every single way, and those ones make so much more sense to buy than this one. Although there may be some weird things, like maybe like you can only connect it to one display at a time on this M1 MacBook Airs, I still think that those are substantially better MacBooks to buy than this particular one. So take it as you will, but if I were to recommend any MacBook, it'd probably be the M1 MacBook Air as far as I can tell you. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.